views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
Get ready for a game changer. Sarah Westall is bringing you Business Game Changers Radio. Mondays at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, Sarah will bring you leading experts, visionaries, and newsmakers who provide the best commentary on big issues and cutting-edge innovations. Sarah's 20 years as a business executive will help you think like an entrepreneur with expertise, energy, and attitude. Now here's your host, Sarah Westall.
Welcome to Business Game Changers. I'm Sarah Westall, and you're listening to the Conscious Business Radio Network on Transformation Talk Radio. I am hoping you're having a great Monday and you're preparing for Super Tuesday tomorrow. For those of you that watch the Republican debate, I got to tell you that was it was really funny. But at the same time, I mean, watching Trump, it's funny. I mean, you can't say anything, but it's funny. Some of the things he says is so over the top. But the sad part is these are serious issues. So while it is a really entertaining thing to watch because you can't believe a politician would actually say half the things that he's saying, it's sad because this is real stuff. I mean, we have some real serious issues that we have to deal with. And so what we're going to talk about today is dealing with a crisis and how you deal with crises in general, whether you're talking your business or a city or a police department or, the government. And today we have the commanding officer from the New York Police Department, NYPD, Officer Keith Singer. He actually is a former commanding officer, but he was in charge of many crises, including he was involved in 9/11, Hurricane Sandy, and the 2003 Blackout. And now he has his own company, ICMC Group, which is a crisis management firm that consults with business owners, CEOs, and heads of government on what to do in those kinds of situations. And I think it's really timely. I mean, we have so many issues going on in our country and around the world. I mean, you never know when a crisis is going to occur, whether it's the grid that goes out, whether we have a natural disaster, or whether somebody messes with your internet and your networks, your computers. There's all sorts of possibilities that can cause problems. And every major city, every company really needs to be prepared and what to do, and not just from a physical standpoint, but also how do you deal with the PR of it? How do you make sure that people don't get panic and create more issues? And so you have to look at all the different contingencies that go on, and he's going to explain all that. And it's a really fascinating interview that I have with him. And before we get into that, I just want to remind you that on sarahwestall.com, I have all my past shows, and including this one. I'll have this one up as a podcast so that you can re-listen to it if you want. But go to sarahwestall.com, put comments in there, do whatever you need to do, but you can hear all my shows there, as well as on iTunes and all your favorite podcast players. It's all over the place. We have it on over 90 different channels. So you can reach any of my past shows there. But now I'm going to welcome Keith Singer to the program.
Well, at the NYPD, I had several different functions. When I was a sergeant, I was a patrol supervisor. I was a plainclothes sergeant. And as a lieutenant, I was the commanding officer of Transit Bureau Operations. So exactly what that means is that anything significant that happened in the New York City transit system, I'd be the person who would get the resources, would make sure we had all the manpower. I was also the liaison with the MTA. So for a significant incident such as Hurricane Sandy, I would have my plans, the MTA would have their plans, we'd get together, we'd review both plans together to make sure that we were on the same page. Then I would present that to my chief would present that to the police commissioner, and obviously with Hurricane Sandy, those plans were then sent to the mayor, and that's what the mayor used at press conferences. So that's exactly what I did on the NYPD.
So you essentially came up with the plans and things, and then that rolled up a couple levels to the mayor, and that's what got rolled out.
That's correct, depending on how significant the incident was.
Well, did you have to deal with crises on a regular basis?
Oh, yeah, I had to deal with crises, a lot of crises on a regular basis, such as personal crisis,
like what would be a personal crisis that you would see?
Well, a personal crisis would be a lady, say, and her husband's, abusing her, and we would have to get the husband out of there, arrest the husband, and then we would have to find a safe location for the wife, for the kids, to make sure that when the husband did get out, he wouldn't go back and do the same thing to the wife. So that would be on the lines of a personal crisis.
And then from a citywide crisis, what kinds of things besides Hurricane Sandy, what other kinds of things did you have to deal with on a citywide level?
Citywide level, during the blackout, I led a team to make sure that everybody was safe, that everybody who was on life support within the geographical area was maintaining their life support, that we didn't have to bring them to the hospital, that no significant crimes were happening during the blackout. I dealt with 911 as well. I dealt with 911. So I dealt with a couple of big issues during the course of my career.
Well, and you were in charge of that for like the blackout. You were in charge of that. Now that's a pretty serious, right? I mean, the government's becoming more concerned with the grid going down, and that was a really good example of what can happen. What kinds of things happen, and were you able to keep problems from spiraling out of control when the blackout occurred?
Yeah, I think what we did on the NYPD, I think we kept a lot of problems spiraling out of control for the blackout, because you have to understand, and also with Hurricane Sandy, when you have the blackout, you don't have any power anywhere. So that means you're not going to have power at the gas stations. You're not going to have some power in buildings where people, again, need to be on life support and things of that nature. And also, you also have to take care of the responsibilities that you have to make sure nobody takes advantage of what's going on, that there's no lights, meaning that nobody's going to, break into stores or take any merchandise that isn't theirs, and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, for the blackout, we suppressed a lot of that stuff, and a lot of that stuff didn't happen. I mean, if you ever read regarding the 1970s blackout in New York City, it was much, much different from when I had to handle the blackout in New York City.
And now why is that? Is that because we just know more? And because
we were better prepared, yes. We were absolutely better prepared.
It was such a disaster back then that we knew what to do.
Yeah, we were definitely better prepared for the second one. We exactly knew where to put all the personnel. We knew exactly where the locations that we might have some problems in, so we could put equipment there and we could put personnel there. So, yeah, we were much, much better prepared for the second one.
Now, what do you think if and I know you work with businesses and governments and stuff on how to deal with crises. What is the real threat of a blackout, like a terrorist going after our power grid across the country? I mean, you dealt with it firsthand in New York. What is the likelihood or chance it can happen across our country, and are we prepared nationwide for something like that?
The chances that would happen across the country nationwide is very significant, because you have to understand our power grid isn't the best power grid. Our power grid is very old. It hasn't been updated in a long time. I'm sure it's very easily hacked into. So if a country that was an enemy of ours was able to get into our power grid, they can cause complete chaos. Because I remember I'm going to bring up Hurricane Sandy. If you remember, when we didn't have, nobody could get gas at the gas stations, and you saw those lines, if that happens for a prolonged period of time, people eventually have a breaking point. And that breaking point would probably turn everything into chaos. And not to mention, all the infrastructure things that we take for granted, like stoplights and alarms and things of that nature. So we would have none of that. So yeah, it's very significant. It's something that's very, very real. It's something that the government and I've been saying for years, should really take a better look at, because our power grid is absolutely disgraceful.
Well, and what's the likelihood that the police themselves might just desert and be part of the chaos because they figure that it's, you know what I'm saying?
I don't see that being a high probability that the police would just desert. Okay. Again, depending on how long it lasts, people have their breaking points. So you would have to take that on a case by case basis. But for something that we would be able to manage and that we'd be able to get that power grid back up and going again, no, I don't see any police deserting or anything like that.
Because it's probably not long enough. And if it was, the military might come involved or something.
Yeah, then, yeah. If it came to be that big of a problem where we had all sorts of riots going on and things of that nature, obviously the military would definitely get involved in it.
Okay, and how is that some of the stuff that you help with governments now and different organizations now, is for problems such as that?
Yes, things such as that. And I also, as a matter of fact, I just got back from St. Kitts, a country in the Caribbean, not too long ago, and they're having a problem with homicides over there. So we had a symposium, and I talked to the Prime Minister, and I was talking to the police chiefs over there, and we were coming up with solutions to try to stop this homicide and drug problem that they're having. So I go not only across the country, but I go around the world advising people on crises. Well,
with the level of poverty rising and with our financial situation, are you seeing homicide increasing or more crimes that deal with survival type crimes?
No, I see violent crime increasing across the country, and I don't know if it's so much economics at this point, but the feeling of policing in this country has changed considerably. So I believe that when there's a perception of police losing respect with the community, and, people will take advantage of that, and you'll see the homicides go up in that fashion, because it does give the criminal a kind of like a safety net, saying, hey, the police are hated this much, so even if we do this, it most likely will fall back on the police and it will be their fault. So the criminals are pretty savvy, knowing the climate that's out there. So I think they, in a lot of cities, are taking advantage of that.
And is it working? Is it really going back on them, or is it just kind of a false sense of that because of our media?
Well, yeah, of course it's a false sense because of the media, but perception is everything, and you know that. So
yes.
If it's perceived to be that way, then it is going to be that way. And that's why I've been noticing when I'm looking at the crime trends throughout the country, I see violent crime going up in a lot of these major cities.
Well, and how much of that is just related to drugs? Whenever there is a more free-flowing drug availability, doesn't violent crimes go up? As well as whenever there's the poverty and the unemployment goes up and, jobs are scarce, violent crimes go up as well during that period, I would think.
Well, yeah, you have to understand right now in this country also we have a heroin epidemic.
We need to take a short station break, but we'll be back to talking with Keith Singer and Crisis Management in a moment.
What if we really didn't have to die to go to heaven? Are you curious about the afterlife or rebirth? The highly anticipated new book from author Dr. Susan Allison, You Don't Have to Die to Go to Heaven, is available now. Find out how to find guidance and healing in the spirit realms. Order the book today and put it on your must-read list for 2016. Visit drsusanallison.com to learn more.
Introducing the Lucid Planet, a digital gathering place featuring cutting-edge, high-vibrational content that will empower and inspire you to become the greatest version of yourself. Visit the Lucid Planet today to stimulate your mind, body, and soul as you connect with a global community of like-minded people. The Lucid Planet is edited by renowned psychologist and author Dr. Kelly Neff, who is here to help you cope with anxiety, connect to your higher purpose, uncover your true passions, and live your dreams. Dr. Kelly's fresh, compassionate perspective emphasizes growth, transformation, healing, and thriving. Even in the face of adversity, say goodbye to bad news and low vibrational media for good and become part of the larger collective of people working together to navigate the global shift of consciousness and transform the world from within. Join the planet.